Josh and Liam, could you provide some background on how your firm has used Synchro and 4D planning in general?
We're sort of supporting across the portfolio now. I think it's up to about 107 projects across the business in some form or another at different stages. So that might be anything from a sort of early piece of advice all the way through to sort of full construction sequencing and detailed, as well as obviously the pre-con end, which tends to be our most intense period as well.
Josh, anything you'd like to add to what Liam said?
We always say the phrase that it's now part of the planning process. It's not just an output. So you get the output that's driven by the 4D sequence, but it's the process we go through in terms of linking those models to the program, incorporating temporary works, managing the change, if the design changes, making sure that the 4D model is kept up to date. If there's additional temporary works, making sure that those are added and seeing the impact. So it's all about the process, not the output.
And people, working with people is the other one
Yeah.
I'd throw in there. We focus on getting the models in front of the teams. It's not just a desktop exercise that's purely digital. So.
And Liam, you said something about the pre-con stage being one of the more intense. Tell me a little more about that. Why is that? What are you doing in pre-con with 4D?
I mean, I think it's just the optimal time to really get the value of a digital rehearsal to a certain extent. Obviously, we've explored to a point within the tender period, sort of our strategy and approach. Obviously, then upon award, we sort of really sort of mobilise the team at that point. We're probably in a much better position in terms of design. We're bringing our subcontractors on board, so we've got a better understanding of our sort of constructability and approach, temporary works requirements and all of those things. So you really sort of enrich the model to a point where you are running an actual digital rehearsal, and it's sort of it's the most critical point, because obviously there's still so much flexibility in what you can do and things that you can change. Obviously, the more you move towards construction, the more things are sort of set in stone, and there's only so many things that you can sort of either move or adjust. Or so in that really early pre-con stage, you've got probably the best information, the team coming together, and the flexibilities change pretty much most anything. So it's probably the most valuable point for 4D.
I was going to say, when you said digital rehearsal, then that's probably the two key words. It's like what we hear from the teams is like it gives the whole team, your project manager, your engineers, the guys on the ground that are going to be delivering the work. It gives them a chance to just kick it around and almost make the errors in the room, is what they say. And the pre-con process, if you get a period before construction, it's the perfect time to make those errors, because you can rectify them quite quickly without any health and safety impact, cost impact. It's perfect.
Okay. So then we've kind of touched on my second question already, but maybe we can drill down into a little more detail. What specific benefits has this provided? I'm hearing about, catching errors before they get to the field. I'm guessing there's time savings, cost savings. Talk about some specific benefits your firm has realized from 4D planning.
So we actually put some science behind this for a Construction News Award submission, which got shortlisted last year. So across the portfolio of projects, we have realised circa £25 million in cost avoidance. So it's something that's really hard to quantify, but it's something that we've been striving to do as a business. Is how do you put a value on something that hasn't happened? Because you haven't incurred any cost, you haven't incurred any pain. There's been no time addition. It's really hard to do. And Liam's been doing some wizardry with data, because he's just finished his data apprenticeship. So we're looking at how we can extract bits of data from things that we find, which we call them issues, but we also like to say that there could be opportunities, because we're not only looking for the problem, we're looking for where there's a chance to maybe do things a bit better or a bit differently. So yeah, circa £25 million in cost avoidance across a portfolio of, this is an average of 22 live projects throughout the UK. So this was took at a snapshot in time where we had 22 jobs on the park. But but obviously there's a lot more. There could be a lot more to that if we take into account the pre-con side of work that we do, which is, again, it's probably the heaviest weighted. And then 80% of the projects that we utilise in 4D as a part of their process of going to work were reporting on program against their original baselines. So it was having a massive positive in terms of sticking to that program, which again, all the front end work kind of plays heavily into this, because we feel that if you do get all the problems out the way at the start, where you can do it safely, you do have a better product on site, as long as there's no other constraints thrown in there, I suppose. Anything else, Liam, that I've missed? Go on.
No, I was just going to say, I think there's sort of two camps to it as well, and we've said this before. There's sort of the hard benefits, which is the stuff that we try and measure, which is the clashes on site, the smoothing out of temporary works, access, all of those sort of things. But as Josh said, there's sort of the soft benefit of the teams actually better understanding what they're going to deliver, and understanding that when they're working in zone 1, there's somebody else working in zone 2, and there's that sort of, they've seen it before they get there. And I think that's the soft human side of it, which again is pretty much impossible to measure, but we've had good verbal feedback from teams that they wouldn't particularly be comfortable going to work without it on some of the bigger, more complex jobs now. So.
All right. Well, we've talked about the benefits. Now, what are some of the challenges? I'm sure there have been some hurdles to get over, getting people to adopt the 4D mindset. And what other challenges have you encountered, and how have you addressed them?
We probably agree on this, Liam, as well. But I'd say number one is probably people and culture. But I think here at Sisk, we've kind of cracked that now, where there is just a natural sway to just doing things better, smarter, digital. I think there has been a culture change in like the past 3 to 5 years, and I think that's just because we've brought the right people into the business to drive the culture change, like to transform the way of working. What do you reckon, Liam?
Yeah, I mean, we're sort of in the process currently of we're rolling out a new group strategic plan, which is called Breaking New Ground, which is all around and focused on digital transformation. So the 4D that's been going on since 2018 is sort of a real driving force within that. And I think that the other key is obviously being 2018, we're sort of 5 years, going into 6 years on now. So a lot of the people that were sort of, and we're quite lucky at Sisk that staff turnover in these sort of positions isn't too high as an industry sort of standard. There's a lot of people that have seen it once and are now going into their second projects, and they sort of they're more familiar with the process. They know more what they want from it. They know more the benefits, and they know what to ask for and how to engage with the process. So I think, yeah, as Josh said, that's the other thing as well, is just spending time with the people and not just issuing it as a model via an email and expecting everybody to absorb the benefits from it.
What about just from a, I guess, a budgetary standpoint? Is it ever a challenge to implement this on your projects due to tight budgets, tight margins, or do you find that it's always an investment that has a good return?
I think probably out the whole like digital toolkit within Sisk, I'd say 4D is the one that has the least battle, just purely because it's so easy to see the benefit. Like, I mean, I know a picture says 1,000 words, but as part of the cost avoidance piece that we've been looking at, like we've done one project that's I'm here today actually, that's on site. It's probably at week 14, and we've started doing the cost avoidance piece and working with the QSs to put some real figures behind what we've avoided. And we've probably quantified, say, 8 to 10 of them at the moment, and it's come out at like over 70 grand, £70,000 worth of avoidance just out those 10. And there's actually 50 plus issues which have come up on this job. So there's a hell of a lot more cost that's been avoided. So I think from a commercial perspective, there's the least battle is with 4D just because it's so obvious what the benefit is. Because if you're trying to sell something like 4D, it kind of sells itself. You don't really have to do the sales pitch like a lot of new technology. So,
and yeah, I mean, another thing just to put on top of, and again, bit of a compliment for Sisk, I suppose, but it's driven top down. So from the most senior levels, it's backed as it's what Sisk do, and it's how Sisk go to work in a digital capacity for our own sort of risk and benefit and all of those sort of things. So there's no real battle upwards. We're not sort of pushing up at a closed door. It's kind of, I guess it's already open to a certain extent. So if the project warrants it, then you've got the right people above backing that decision. So it's a little bit of everything. But as I sort of fully concur with what Josh has said.
Okay. And then moving forward, looking to the future, what have you learned on the projects you've done with 4D, and now that you're maybe starting new projects, what might you be doing differently in the future based on what you've learned?
I'd say, like I said, the standard process now, sort of model associated to program, obviously the visual outputs, the workshops, the general process is business as usual within Sisk. So I think, as you say, sort of looking forward, and I think Josh touched on it slightly, starting to rather than being, I guess it is a proactive process, it's not too reactive, but starting to sort of learn from this data that we're recording and look at the data and start to get greater insights, looking at different trends and things across the business. So it's something that we're trying to sort of work into our systems at the moment. And Josh has sort of touched on the fact that we're sort of trying to put some cost avoidance against things. And we're looking at, is it a constructability issue? Is it an access issue? Is it a design issue? Is it a clash? What are the types of issues that we're seeing, and how frequently are we seeing them across various types of projects, so we can sort of better focus our efforts and time to make us more effective in the process, I guess. So it's starting to really sort of just refine the data that we've collected and that we've got, and go to work in a smarter way. I think going forward is the core 4D approach.
but yeah, everything Liam just said, I fully agree with that.
Are there any types of projects that really lend themselves more to 4D by size or type of construction industry or market?
I think, to be honest, I think the short amount of time that it takes to do a simple 4D model, you'd get benefit even if it was a simple project, because if you're talking to non-construction minded people, it's something really easy and quick to just throw on the screen, and quite quickly they fully understand the sequence in about 10-15 minutes of clicking through some snapshots or playing a video. So even the visualization and the communication benefit is worth doing. So yeah, I suppose we just do it on any project.
Yeah, I mean, we do plenty of stuff even without design information. We sort of coined it, and I think it's in the industry as sort of 2D, 4D. So just sort of time sequence location plans and things like that are quite high level. But again, as Josh said, to the layman that doesn't need to know the detail in the program, we can quite quickly explain working directions and positions and access issues and things like that. And I'd say more important than size and cost is probably complexity and unknowns. I guess certain projects obviously have got more hidden complexity, and you kind of just get to know that obviously through experience. There's certain projects where it's more difficult, obviously on civils projects, long linear projects, roads and rail. I guess you can kind of pick up and start anywhere or flip your sequence and move around, and so it's probably harder to track and be effective in that environment. Whereas obviously with the high-rise construction, you've got no choice but to start in the ground and go upwards. So there's less variation, I suppose. But I think I'd go with what Josh said, that there's always value to some level of visualization.
Yeah.
I believe.
Definitely.
Okay. Now, it sounds like your firm is fairly advanced in using 4D, but as you look out as a whole on the industry, what trends do you see on the horizon? Do you see more firms adopting this, different technologies coming into play that aren't really there yet? What kind of trends do you see looking out, say, 1 to 3 years?
I think 4D's going to get more popular, more accessible, more in demand. Like it will just become the standard way to go to work. And I think the way things are being hosted online or tools are being made simpler to use, I think it will just be a given that your engineer on site will be looking at the 4D model before he goes to work. Or and then I think in terms of trends, like we touched on earlier about the cost avoidance piece, like there's so much data at our fingertips. Liam's just done his data apprenticeship course, and it's amazing what you can visualize or what story you can tell with the data you've got. It's quite easy to assess trends and get insights into what's happening on site or what's going to happen on site, or where particular issues are going to arise from similar jobs that you've done in the past because you've collected the data from the jobs in the past, and that all plays in nicely to this, like to 4D planning as a whole. Yeah, we're doing it to look ahead and to see where the project's going, but we almost want to use the data to look back, because if we're going to be doing this in every project and we're looking to do it better on every project, we've probably got that data stored somewhere that can tell us, okay, so if we're building a 30-story tower in the city centre, typically what were the trends in terms of problems on that project? Were they to do with temporary works? Were they to do with traffic and access to the site? You can quite quickly get all this then from a properly updated and recorded 4D model. What about you, Liam?
Yeah, no, I'd agree with all that. I think, as Josh said, I think the construction industry itself sort of awakening, I think, to the amount of data that it holds, as well as things like AI coming to the forefront. It's going to be quite an interesting 5 to 10 years, I think, really, because there's a lot of stuff there that just needs to be organised and understood, and there's a huge opportunity there, I think, to vastly improve on historic rates and things like that, as Josh said. Sort of as more sort of data becomes sort of streamed and live, weather information and all that sort of, it's just better, more accurate planning, more real-time work as well, getting obviously progress updates and things at shorter intervals, being able to be more reactive and plan around shorter term issues, so not just sort of looking at the longer term. I don't know whether we've fully emphasised enough the value of the face time with people, because it's obviously a digital process. It's all models, it's all data, it's all whatever it might be. It's all cloud-based, it's all sort of buzzwordy, whatever you want to call it, but it's still about sitting in front of people and going through it. It's the human side of it that I think makes it successful at Sisk.
100%.
Not just the quality of the models or the sort of the pretty looking renders or whatever it might be. It's that human element.